GT and Eibach GLTC race number 1. Here we go. Time to get it underway. Race 3 of 4, and we're green at WeatherTech Raceway, Laguna, Seca.
Yeah, we've already seen this stack up and this start get pretty hairy, so can everybody keep it nice and clean? So Hans Horpedal's got to really hang on to that lead through that first part, and it doesn't look like we're seeing any major dive bombs. We've got 3 wide coming through turn 2, though. Now they start to spread out and separate as the 2 leaders really pulling a stretch, and then TC right behind them.
And that's a great launch by Matan Rosenberg on the outside of the Falcon Corvette. 3 wide in the middle is Peter Zhang on the run down to the Andretti hairpin. Rosenberg clears, Ross for the lead, but Ross tucks in tight there, and that second apex is going to try to wrestle that lead back.
Yeah, nice and tidy so far, but I mean, I think I saw almost 4 cars wide coming through the latter half of turn 2, and now the cars starting to sort themselves out, find that pacing, and will they keep it tidy through the first lap and then start to get into a bit more of an order and start, this is where we start getting the dives.
Yeah, and see Jordan Wisely there in the number 7 Veloster having a look at Spence in the Lotus Exige. Into turn 6, the Lotus bottoms out there on the curbing. That'll give Wisely a huge run to the outside. Look at that Veloster go to the outside. It looks like you could put the Lotus in the trunk of that thing.
Yeah, the size difference is incredible, and that small bottom out created a massive opportunity for the Veloster.
3 wide on the run to 6. Peter Zhang's in the middle of it. They get it sorted. That was Lapid in the 3, actually Hilo and Lapid in the 350Zs, and Zhang crosses him over on the run to the corkscrew. That was dicey.
Yeah, not a spot that you want to be 3 wide, not even 2 wide going into that section. Now we'll see if TC is able to handle into our corkscrew, and looking pretty good so far.
Oh, big clobber down the corkscrew there with the 94 of Jonathan Lugot. Big slip and slide there. And look at the lead here. Rosenberg has it, but here comes Justin Ross. And right behind him, I think, is that Rodriguez or McGuigan? I think it's Rodriguez in the 120, right on the tailpipes of Ross's 272. Bunch of M3s. Look at them all hunting down Matan Rosenberg there.
Yeah, we've seen a lot of change in leadership coming out of 11 down this straight, just trying to get the traction down, trying to get the power to the tarmac to be able to do it. And it was a great job there from Rosenberg, who was able to hold on to it. A very slippery Corvette coming through that fast sections. Got to get as much of a lead as he can, because we already know that Justin Ross able to pick up a bit of time through the tighter sections.
And Lasovsky is sitting in second place right behind Hans Horpedal. He was right on the tailpipes of the 77 on the first lap, but has dropped back just a touch on the opening moments of this. And into 6. Clobbering the compression there and throttles up towards the corkscrew.
Yeah, right now Horpedal doing a great job of maintaining that lead and extending it out as far as possible, and it's going to be a bit of an uphill battle. Both, I mean, just in general with this track having so much of an elevation change for Lavoski, who's keeping things pretty tidy, but it's going to need to pick up a lot of pace to be able to take over Horpedal, who's just absolutely on one. We get a bit more of a stack up, a few more wide going up our hill. Drivers are really electing to use that section to try and get a pass in.
This looks like Michael Hilo alongside the 19 of Abdul Osmani down into the corkscrew, a little side by side. That's tough math, but they sort it. A little bit of a skid behind. You heard Jason Lapid's car sideways.
Doing a good job hanging in there, taking the inside line. Can he hold on to it? This is a head-to-head battle. Go for the sweep back through 10.
Oh, look at that move. Hilo's going to be on the outside now. Tough to make that work. Maybe he can over-under Abdul. You see Lapid popping back into the group as well as they come up onto the front straightaway. Hans Horpedal well ahead now. Lasovsky putting a good distance on him as Rosenberg crosses the line. Half a second clear of Ross. Rodriguez, Wayne, McGuigan, the rest of your top 5. And here's a look at your top speeds from lap 1 of this race. Look at Scafuto in the Camaro, 127 miles an hour. And that's a 6-mile-an-hour difference to Shashovsky in that air-cooled Porsche, and courtesy of Fire Labs, our official data provider for GRIDLIFE GT.
Yeah, it just shows the massive difference there when it comes to the chassis and power choice. But for right now, it is all Horpedal out front, and continuing to extend that lead over his competitor Lavoski. And we'll see if Scafuto able to get back in and maybe bring the fight up to second. Anything can happen, especially as these lead cars we start to catch up with the backpack of the TC side of things. That'll be really interesting, and that bit of traffic for Horpedal may fall right into the hands of Lavoski, who's just kind of hoping that becomes a bit of a situation.
Hans Horpedal's carrying one of those Fire Links, and it sounds like Jonathan Grace caught up with him to talk about how Fire Labs has helped him find speed and win his first ever GRIDLIFE GT races this weekend.
Hans Orpedal, driver of the number 77 Corvette in GLGT. We're going through and asking some of the GT guys how they make use of the FireLab system that's on board, pulling data and analyzing it. What does it do for you?
It saves me a lot of time. You know, sometimes we have a short window between races to come in, sit down, download data, you know, get to dig through it, all the graphs and charts. With FireLabs, you come in, by the time I get out of my suit, it's already uploaded. It's going to tell you the areas to work on, and you can set levels of aggressiveness. So kind of depending on how I feel in the car, the AI with FireLabs can give me little suggestions or big suggestions to go after a lot of lap time. So that's how it saves me a lot of time, especially with those short windows and you're trying to check the car over and feel the car and check brakes and get it in the air like it is now. That's the biggest thing for me that it's doing so far.
Where are some of the bigger areas you've been able to find speed by pouring through the data, specifically at Laguna?
Some of the low speed sections, like the dig out of corner 11, that saved me a little bit of time there. Coming through 2, I kept leaving the car in 3rd gear, decided to try 2nd gear, it was a better climb out of there. So, and that's what it can do. It gives you these little spots on the map that says, here's something to look at, here's something to look at. And so far for me, it's been really accurate.
I'm glad you're getting some use out of it. You're making good use out of it in the first couple of races. Best of luck in the following 2.
Thank you.
Looks like this battle between Ross and Rosenberg heating up.
Yeah, and actually, Justin Ross has gotten around Rosenberg for the lead, and Rosenberg has dropped to 2nd place and now has pressure coming in the form of Tony Rodriguez in the number 120, and Zwain's right behind him, McGuigan's there, and then Oscar Jackson in that yellow FRS. That car is real cool. So good to see a bit of a mix-up here in the top 5, but Ross has been undefeated so far this weekend. You see him really pushing the limits there at the exit of turn 10.
If I'm not mistaken, I think he pulled a similar tactic in a race previous where he held back just a little bit, and then after getting comfortable from a few laps, able to make that dive in and get a very, very clean pass. So see how everybody's able to get the power down coming through 11. Now this is the spot where we might see the Corvette gain a little bit of ground. It's a bit slippery through this section, but just not able to really get into the backside of Ross, and maybe a late dive. That'd be a real late dive going into 2.
Yeah, trying to keep the pressure on him. And again, if you're Eric Cattell back at home, you came into this event 2 points ahead of him. And again, there's a lot of championship formats to consider, or I guess permutations that we have to think about with Baton just finishing 2nd this weekend. I think the expectation was that he was going to win at least something. But looking back at his season, there's a couple races that he was going to drop at Lime Rock. But if I do some math here, he's going to gain a couple points on Cattell, but it's not going to be insurmountable by any stretch if he just gets P2s this weekend. If he gets 1st places, the math gets really, really hard for Eric. So Matan has to win something, I think, to really go into pit race with any sort of insurmountable advantage for Cattell, who's not here this weekend. Yeah,
and Rosenberg's starting to do that. He was all up in the mirrors of Ross. Now they've pulled a bit more of a gap coming up the hill, but it really seemed like it for Rosenberg, who was just basically into the rear bumper of Ross. And as they come through the corkscrew, this could be a big, big difference maker. And getting very aggressive from Rosenberg coming through that section. Ross very, very tidy though. And that gap continues to push out a little bit. It's kind of squirrely from the Corvette, whereas the BMW is just so planted through every corner.
Yeah, these two have been really evenly matched, but it's just been slight advantage to Ross, and maybe that's that West Coast advantage, having been here a little bit more. So let's talk about how Rosenberg's car, you know, the advantage it's had over the season has sort of ebbed and flowed. At CMP, it didn't seem like it was really the heavier weight that he's gone with this year was really suiting this car, but in the middle of the summer, it just, you know, lit the afterburners, but on the tail end of the summer, it hasn't been quite as good, really late on the brakes into turn 1.
Yeah, able to save that. That got a little hairy for him there. You can see the back end starting to step out as the front brakes dig in, and thankfully didn't over-rotate coming through that section of 2, but we'll see if he's able to keep that pace going behind Ross.
And see Oscar Jackson in that yellow FRS. That's a car that we've seen here 3 years in a row now. It was supercharged at one point. I think it's a K-Series car now, but just absolutely spectacular looking machine. Here's another look at that Lotus Exige. That's Spence. And again, we don't see a lot of low tie in GRIDLIFE GT competition, but have a look here. It is not up in the top 5 as far as the cornering speeds at turn 6, at least not yet, but Lisowski in that Corvette, 81 miles an hour there, mid-speed. In that high compression corner where you're really leaning on aero. Yeah, and GT's got a pretty big spread going on right now. Spence, although sitting in 3rd, just kind of left out of the pace and racing their own race for the time being, and might get
things might get a little bit closer as we get down to almost to the 5-minute mark, as a few back markers are going to start appearing for the GT drivers.
There's Azimuth Muhammad and Anthony Dominici in the 173. And trying to chase him down. The number 997 RX-7 behind him. That's a really interesting machine. That's a two-rotor RX-7 that is sort of detuned a little bit to run with this rule set. Shoots big flames out the tailpipes. It's a really cool car.
Yeah, the old 13B, a beautiful engine coming from Mazda, and would love to see some more Wankels out there, but I'm going to take what we can get at this point. So checking out a few more drivers coming around 11, and a lot of passing going on through this section as certain drivers want to be a little bit more aggressive on the brakes, but we're keeping it pretty tidy for the time being. That RX-7 starting to pull a bit of a draft behind a BMW.
Up onto the front stretch. Here comes the RX-7 to the outside of Dominici. I thought he might try to break the long way around, but this double apex left-hander at the Andretti hairpin is tough math to do on that outside line. You like to be right up against those inside curbs at both those apexes. Jump up to 5th place. Lasovsky was 2nd. He's just slowly dropped throughout this event. Didn't catch exactly what happened to him. But also note that he doesn't have end plates on that rear wing. I wonder why that is.
Yeah, that's pretty interesting. But yeah, the pace just not there for Lasovsky. Falling back pretty quick, and that GT class has got a pretty big spread at this point in time.
Big wiggle coming down the hill, and he got sideways at the crest as well. He's got Dushovsky in the Porsche chasing him. And he actually just got around Dushovsky because the 380 on the ticker is ahead of him. So
yeah,
they have not crossed the timing and scoring loop to show that position swap just yet.
Lavosky, a tough tongue twister for us, but they're still battling out just a little bit, although for right now, Lavosky able to get that done and holding on to that position. And we see the driver coming into play once again with a few back markers.
Yep, and there's Stephen Bright going a lap down there as Hans Worpendahl this time doesn't have to have Colin King slicing and dicing up the inside. You see Rosenberg there within a second of Justin Ross, but only 3 minutes left on the timing and scoring. We're getting down to the end of this race. Have a look at this. The Porsche, actually the best on the brakes last time around. 1.17 G, better than the Camaro, better than the 2 Corvettes up in the top 5.
Yeah, I can see that probably just losing the pace in a few other sectors, some of the longer stretches of this track. The Porsche doing a great job through the tight sections, but just not able to hang on to it through the high-speed sections.
And look at the cornering force there. Lasovsky 1.8 G at that compression at turn 6. That's pretty impressive. Hearing an update from Jonathan on pit lane about the Veloster. See Jordan Wisely down a couple laps on the timing and scoring. Broke the clutch. So he's basically just jamming it into gear and has to be push started, but he's making it work, all things considered. Great update from Jonathan on the pit lane.
Yeah, thank you for that. And he's been doing a great job all weekend. A pleasure to have him on the team. And yeah, this has been a wild one. I mean,
oh boy, traffic, Jacob.
Yeah.
Oh boy.
Yeah, Ross Rosenberg now just takes a completely new side to this as he's already fighting. There it is, the flashers. And I think he's going to need a T-shirt or a sticker or something by the time this weekend is done, trying to get the Porsche out of his way so he can continue to stretch out. And Rosenberg, this is what he was hoping for. Get Ross into some traffic, wait for an opportunity, and try and make a dive as he's going for that pass over the Porsche.
And they're going to be coming to the white flag. This is going to be the last time around WeatherTech Raceway Laguna Seca in race 3. Now that Justin Ross is going to have to pass an air-cooled Porsche in GT. You see the 380 pulling over to the side, but it's going to out-drag him on the straightaway. This is the challenge of multi-class racing. Here comes Rosenberg up to the inside. He's going to have a look to the inside of Ross. Ross tries to cover. He cannot.
Oh,
side by side, they're going to split the Porsche into turn 2. Unbelievable move. Ross loses the lead.
I'm sure Ross is absolutely furious. He gets in the back end of Rosenberg. Oh my gosh, they are getting aggressive coming through the Andretti hairpin, and Ross is probably absolutely losing it behind the wheel right now. But this is racing, this is multi-class, and you got to account for all of it and make the pass where you think is the most appropriate. But Rosenberg doing an incredible job of going tight on 2 to make the pass.
Rosenberg is here without his championship rivals. Wins are going to matter a lot here. Pass more lap traffic takes the lead away from Justin Ross, who's won the first 2 races of the weekend, and he's still got half a lap left. There's another GT car up the road that they might catch. So into turn 6 now. Rosenberg has a half-second advantage.
This is going to get very, very interesting. So will Ross...
Ross is off.
Oh, he let let it get to him. A bit of a mental lapse there going wide through that section, and that the frustration now sinks in for Ross. He's got to keep this tidy. There's not much left in this race, but it's going to be a pretty tough ask to get back into the lead over Rosenberg.
Remember that we will invert some of the field here, so you don't want to throw away a second. You still got good points. You're still in position to win the weekend if you're Justin Ross. Don't throw it away in the last couple of corners. Checkered flag. Hans Horpedal wins in GRIDLIFE GT. Spence in the Lotus comes home in second, but Justin Ross led at the white flag and splitting traffic three wide, just like we saw in the GT race yesterday. Matan Rosenberg is going to steal one away, and he'll come across the line first in the Falcon Corvette. Ross comes home in second, and looks like Tony Rodriguez in third. It looks like Oscar Jackson was able to sneak up into fourth place.
Yeah. Well, we were focused in on the lead. Jackson doing a great job of making a few passes and getting up there into fourth, and then Hilo taken in fifth on that round.
Wow, that is going to be an interesting chat post-race. But again, for the Tchaikovsky Porsche, didn't do anything wrong.
No.
Again, your responsibility as that car getting past is just to be predictable. Maybe to center road if you could say anything, but he can't hit the disappear button. He's going to have to coexist on the racetrack, and they just pick different ways around. Rosenberg getting pretty cheeky on the inside there to steal the spot, but what a battle there.
Yeah, what a battle for sure. And Ross had that 50-50 split between left or right and opting to go outside, and unfortunately just wasn't the right move. So Rosenberg able to get pretty hard on the brakes to make that dive in and go 3 wide through the Andretti hairpin. That is racing, folks, and that's the kind of finish that everybody more or less hopes for, especially when you're sitting there in second through a good chunk of that race.
Let's have a look at the results here for GRIDLIFE GT and Eibach GLTC race number 3. Hans Horpedal gets it done over Charles Spence. Spence was railing back in, though. Look at that differential.
Yeah.
And with the invert in race 4, maybe Scafuto or Spence could beat out Horpedal.
Yeah, that Exige really came into its own, and then Anthony Scafuto taking third, Maxwell Levosky fourth, Rob Tarkovsky in fifth, and then Stephen Bright sixth, Jordan Wisely in seventh.
Yeah, then in the Eibach GLTC field, this is where the drama was. Matan Rosenberg, Justin Ross, Tony Rodriguez, Oscar Jackson. Is that gap accurate? 22 I don't think it's. No, there was something. That might be to the overall leader. That's something I'll have to look at. Tony Rodriguez, Oscar Jackson, Michael Hilo in top 5. Then Joe McGuigan, Abdul Osmani, Jason Lapid, Jonathan Lugot, and Peter Zhang with a top 10.
Yeah, getting into our the latter half of that 20, Asmith Mohammed, Anthony D'Amici, Christopher Rosales, Jarek Javier, Daniel Garaldo, Stephen Elias, Sergio Orestes, and Josh Fleur, Adam Billings, and Anthony Zwane filling out your top 20.
And looking down the rest of the field there, Ryan Fitzgerald, the last car on the racetrack in that 617. That wraps up your GLTC field here in race number 3. Let's have a look back at the highlights from this race. Pretty spicy all around. A couple mechanicals to deal with in GRIDLIFE GT, but it started with Hans Horpedal and Lasovsky in the red Corvette. They were the two drivers that started and drove away. But again, Horpedal just putting distance on himself. You see Scafuto in the Camaro, and then Jordan Wisely nursing a broken clutch, just jamming the car into gear. That poor thing. Just trying to get to the end of the race.
Yeah, and really that story, all Hans Horpedal got out front, stayed out front, and just looked very comfortable in the lead, and didn't really have to check his mirrors through a vast majority of that race. But seeing that Exige of Charles Spence come back up was great. And here it is, TC. What an incredible start. And the way it started is almost kind of the way it finished.
Yeah, again, with Justin Ross taking the lead away from Matan Rosenberg later in the race, because Matan had originally had it on the start, but he had the lead for a little while after he got by Matan, and this is where he started feeling desperate, just picked the wrong line here around the Porsche, and that's all it took.
I mean, this little bit of contact, it seemed like. Look at the exit, getting that BMW bumper right into the back of the Corvette. Maybe hoping for a bit of a mistake, but Rosenberg very steady all the way through, and Ross even going up into the uphill section having a bit of a mistake and getting off track just a bit. And the frustration sinks in for Ross.
Unfortunate end for Justin Ross there, but he had won 2 races up to this point, so his points will still be looking good for the weekend. But let's head down and chat with Hans Horpedal, the GLGT race winner. He's standing by with Jonathan Grace.
Your overall winner in GLGT, Hans Horpedal, we caught up this morning. He led every lap from pole position. It looked comfortable from the outside, but how comfortable was it inside the 77?
We knew with King outside of the field, we weren't probably going to have to battle just based on pace. So I got the lead, try to manage the pace in the car from there. We're really thin on brake pad at this point in the weekend. I don't have any spares, so I just needed to secure the win and go just as fast as needed to do that. So that's what we did.
How much is left in the tank for the final race?
Enough. I think we'll have enough.
That's your overall winner, Hans Orpedal in the 77, guys.
Thanks, Jonathan, and yeah, congratulations to Horpedal in that silver 77 Corvette, but he'll have to deal with a field invert for race number 4.
Right. So if you like the passing you saw now, just wait when we get that invert going. There'll be a ton of passing going on at that point.
Yeah, of course, now the sun is out. There's a couple clouds keeping the sun from beating directly down here on WeatherTech Raceway, Laguna Seca. But Matan Rosenberg and Justin Ross, they've been battling all weekend long. We hadn't really seen them get side by side beyond the first lap until this race. And it was pretty exciting to watch. But Matan will roll across the scales here in just a moment. And his hopes are to beat Eric Catil in the championship. And 330 points are what he has right now. And Eric Catil is going to be sitting at about 322.
Okay.
So it's an 8-point difference in Matan's favor at this stage, but that is not insurmountable because at pit race you can't throw out any of your races. They have to count. But let's head down to your new points leader in Eibach GLTC after race 3 win, Matan Rosenberg with Jonathan Grace.
Your Eibach GLTC winner, Matan Rosenberg. This is a pretty darn good way to start race 3. How comfortable was it for you? I want to start talking about that final pass on the final lap. You did it through traffic. What were you thinking in the car?
So, like I said in my pre-race interview, I was like, man, I hope Ross gets the bad end of the lap traffic, and he did. He got a sacrificed exit out of 11 there, and I got kind of a clear run. And he also kind of was struggling to figure out which way he'd go around the traffic, and he chose right, and there was kind of enough room on the left, so I was like, well, I guess we're going to split it. And it worked out, and obviously I knew Ross was going to come back close to me, try to make it through the corner together. And I actually lost him in my mirrors for a second, so I was trying to figure out where he was, if he was on the outside of me. And then I felt a little love tap from the back, and I was like, okay, he's behind me still, we're good. And I knew I just had to finish the rest of the lap smooth. The first half of the lap, my car's quick, so I had to make sure I got, through 3 and 4 really well. And then typically 5 and 6 is where he gets me. And so I tried to do as best a job as I could through 5. And as best a job as I could through 6 without, going a little bit too fast. And he obviously had the same idea, but he might have sent it a little bit too hard. And so he was out in the sand, so it took some pressure off me for corkscrew in the rest of the lap. But it was a battle. It was a battle to the end. I got an early lead in the race, but I knew it wasn't going to stay like that. So he set me up pretty well after the corkscrew. He was telling me one thing when we were in practice on how to defend the corkscrew, and of course he set me up for his move on the outside. So it's kind of funny, but it worked out well, and it was a fun race. It was hot, and it worked out well.
Well, great way to start your Sunday. Congratulations, a last lap pass for the win, guys.
Thanks, John.